The stars looked different from the observation deck of the Zoraxian vessel. Jack Murphy pressed his hand against the cool glass and watched Earth grow smaller behind them. 6 weeks had passed since the aliens arrived, and now he was leaving home as part of humanity's first diplomatic mission to Galactic Concordat space. "Lieutenant Murphy, your presence is requested in Conference Room 3, said a voice over the intercom. Jack straightened his uniform and made his way through the curved hallways. The ship was built for beings slightly taller than humans, making him feel like a child in an adult's house. The air carried a faint scent of cinnamon and ozone. When Jack entered the conference room, Ambassador Krelith was already there, his iridescent scales shimmering under the lights. 4 other Zoraxians stood around a holographic display, while Dr. Lisa Green sat taking notes on her tablet. "Ah, the human security attachment has arrived," Krelith said, his translator converting the series of clicks and hums into English. "We were discussing approach protocols for the Concordat station." Lisa smiled at Jack. "They're worried about how other species might react to us." Jack nodded and took a seat. As military liaison, his job was to ensure human safety, though the Zoraxians have been nothing but peaceful since their ships appeared in Earth's orbit. "Most species have never encountered humans," Krelith explained. "Your biological signatures are unusual." The meeting continued for another hour, covering everything from docking procedures to dining etiquette. As they finished, a loud bang shook the room. The lights flickered and emergency signals flashed. "Engine malfunction in Sector 7, announced the ship's system. "All personnel clear the area." Jack jumped to his feet, hand instinctively moving to where his sidearm would normally be. But what happened next confused him. 3 of the Zoraxians immediately rushed toward him, while Krelith and another backed away until they hit the far wall. "What are you doing?" Jack asked as the aliens crowded around him. Before anyone could answer, the ship stabilized and the emergency lights stopped. "Malfunction contained," the system announced. "Resume normal operations." The Zoraxians slowly moved away from Jack, their head frills flattened in what he recognized as embarrassment. "Interesting," Lisa said, still taking notes. "Very interesting." Later that evening, Jack found Lisa in the ship's common area, surrounded by data displays. "Care to explain what happened earlier?" he asked, sitting across from her. Lisa pushed her glasses up. "I've been collecting behavioral data since we came aboard. This wasn't the first incident." She showed him footage from the ship's cameras. During a minor power fluctuation last week, several Zoraxian crew members had rushed to the kitchen, where Chef Al Peters was preparing meals. During a separate incident, when an airlock warning had sounded, 2 maintenance workers had fled from Henry Garcia, one of the engineers. "I don't get it," Jack said. "It's instinctual," Lisa explained. "When something unexpected happens, they either run toward the nearest human or away from us. The pattern is consistent, but varies by individual." Jack watched the footage again. "Have you asked them about it?" Ambassador Krelith denies it's happening. Says it's coincidence. The next morning, Jack approached Vren, one of the junior Zoraxian officers who seemed more open to conversation with humans. "Can I ask you something unofficial?" Jack said as they monitored the navigation systems. Vren's inner eyelids blinked. "You wish to know why we approach or avoid you during emergencies?" Jack was surprised by the directness. "Yes, exactly." "It is not discussed with outsiders," Vren said quietly. "But among our kind, there is an old saying, 'In danger, find the apex or flee it.' Your species gives off signals. Some of us sense you as protectors, others as dangers. It is deep in our biology." "But we just met your species," Jack pointed out. Vren turned all 4 eyes toward the stars. "Yes, yet somehow our bodies remember yours." When Jack reported this to Lisa, she immediately began expanding her research. As their ship approached the massive Concordat station, she had documented similar responses from the Pelaxians and Voth representatives who had come aboard to greet them. "We need to understand this," she told Jack as they prepared for arrival. If it's happening across species, it could be crucial for human integration into galactic society. Jack watched the enormous station grow larger in the viewport, or it could make us targets. Neither of them noticed Ambassador Krelith watching from the doorway, his communication device already activating to contact the Concordat Security Council about the unexpected complication humans presented to Galactic Order. 6 months passed since first contact, and humans were now working alongside aliens throughout nearby star systems. On Proxima Centauri, the joint mining operation extracted rare minerals needed for faster-than-light travel. Gary Collins wiped sweat from his brow as he checked the equipment readings. Though the planet had been terraformed, the air still felt thick and warm. "Pressure levels normal in Sector 5, he said into his communicator. The mining supervisor job wasn't glamorous, but it paid well enough to support his family back on Earth. Gary oversaw a crew of 23 humans and 49 aliens from 6 different species. Most were Zoraxians and Palaxians, with a few Voth heavy equipment operators. They all got along well enough, though Gary noticed how the aliens still maintained strange distances from humans, either very close or oddly far. "Collins, we have anomalous readings in the deep shaft," said Zrix, his Palaxian assistant. The insectoid's antennae twitched nervously. Gary frowned at the monitoring screen. "Get maintenance down there. Tell them to bring extra stabilizers." As Gary turned to check another station, a low rumble vibrated through the floor. The vibration grew stronger, rattling equipment and sending dust cascading from the ceiling. Warning lights flashed red, and sirens wailed throughout the facility. "Structural integrity compromised. Evacuate immediately," blared the automated system. Harry grabbed the emergency protocols tablet. "Everyone to the escape shuttles. Move in an orderly." His words died as chaos erupted, but not the kind he expected. Instead of rushing toward the clearly marked exits, the alien workers surged toward him and the other human supervisors. Within seconds, Gary found himself surrounded by Zoraxians and Palaxians, their eyes wide with what seemed like expectation. "What are you doing?" Gary shouted over the alarms. "The exits are that way." A Voth heavy lifter named Krell pushed through the crowd. "Human Collins will lead us to safety," he announced with absolute certainty. The rumbling intensified. With no time to argue, Gary made a quick decision. "Form lines behind each human supervisor," he ordered. "4 lines, move quickly, follow us to the shuttles." Remarkably, the panic subsided instantly. The aliens formed neat lines behind each human, moving with surprising efficiency. Gary led his group through shaking corridors as support beams groaned overhead. When a section of ceiling collapsed, blocking their path, he quickly redirected them through maintenance tunnels. All 49 alien workers and 22 human supervisors reached the shuttle safely. One human, Pete Martinez, had been working alone in a distant section and never made it out. 2 days later, Captain Nicole Winters arrived to investigate the incident. She interviewed survivors in a temporary facility on Proxima's moon. "Walk me through it again," she said, studying Gary across the table. "They all just ran to you." Gary nodded, "Like I was a walking exit sign. Krell even picked up 2 injured Palaxians to bring them to me faster." Nicole pulled up security footage on her tablet. The video clearly showed aliens abandoning closer escape routes to cluster around humans. "This isn't isolated," she said, showing Gary another video. "This is from the space station incident last month, and this is from the agricultural colony when that dust storm hit." Each video showed the same pattern: aliens either rushing toward the nearest human or, in some cases, fleeing from them. 17 different species, all exhibiting the same behavior, Nicole continued. "It defies explanation." Later that evening, Nicole called Dr. Lisa Green, who had become the leading researcher on human-alien interactions. Their conversation was joined by Zoraxian scientist Vreltox. "The mining incident confirms our hypothesis," Lisa explained. "It's consistent across environments and emergency types." Vreltox's scales shimmered as he spoke, We have analyzed genetic patterns. Most species evolved with either apex predators or protective herd animals. Their instincts compel specific responses to perceived threats. And humans? Nicole asked. Humans evolved as both, Lisa said. You were predators and prey simultaneously. Something in that unique evolutionary path created biochemical markers that trigger primal responses in other species. Nicole looked troubled. The Concordat leadership is concerned. If this continues, it could dramatically alter power dynamics. It already has, Gary interjected. He had been quiet until now. The aliens at my facility have requested all safety protocols be redesigned around human positioning. They want us stationed throughout the complex as living emergency beacons. Nicole exchanged glances with Lisa. The Galactic Concordat needs to understand this better. We're establishing a dedicated research station to study the phenomenon. The research station orbited a small moon in neutral space. Dr. Lisa Green looked through the observation window at the experiment area below. 20 volunteers from 8 different species moved around the large room, mixing with 5 human researchers. Lisa checked her tablet as the final preparations were made. All sensors active, said Vriltox, the Zoraxian scientist who had become her partner in this study. Biochemical monitors are functioning at optimal levels. Good, Lisa replied. Let's begin test sequence 4. Kevin Porter, a behavioral psychologist from Earth, joined them at the window. You really think we'll get consistent results this time? Lisa nodded. The mining incident wasn't a fluke. We've documented this response across too many species and situations. Kevin remained skeptical. He had joined the research team 3 weeks ago, bringing expertise in evolutionary psychology. It just doesn't make sense. How could species from different planets share the same instinctual response to humans? Vriltox's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue pattern. Perhaps humans were more widespread in ancient times than we know. Below them, the experiment began. Hidden speakers produced a loud crashing sound, followed by flashing red lights. The reaction was immediate and unmistakable. 14 of the alien subjects rushed toward the nearest human. 6 others backed away quickly, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and the humans. Perfect replication of previous results, Lisa said, recording the data. Look at the Palaxian group. They formed a protective circle around Alan. The team ran 4 more simulated emergencies that day. Each produced the same pattern of responses, though individual aliens consistently either approached or avoided humans. Later, in the station's dining area, Lisa reviewed the findings with Kevin and Vriltox. The biochemical data is fascinating, she said. When the emergency starts, humans release specific compounds through their skin. The aliens detect these at a subconscious level. Kevin studied the charts. It's like we're broadcasting on a frequency their brains evolved to recognize. But why? I have a theory, Vriltox said quietly. He seemed hesitant to share it. Our oldest legends speak of ancient guardians who walked among the stars before our civilizations arose, beings who could either protect or destroy. Lisa leaned forward. You think those legends might be about humans? It would explain much, Vriltox replied. Perhaps humans visited many worlds long ago, helping some species evolve while hunting others. The instinctual responses could be genetic memory. Kevin shook his head. Humans evolved on Earth. We have fossil records, DNA evidence. Unless those ancient humans returned to Earth, Vriltox suggested. What if Earth was their final refuge? Their discussion was interrupted by a call from Admiral Olivia Martinez of Earth's Space Command. Her face appeared on the large screen, looking concerned. Dr. Green, we need your preliminary findings immediately, she said. The Concordat Security Council is meeting in 3 days to discuss the human situation. Some species are proposing restrictions on human movement within Concordat space. Lisa frowned. That's premature. We're still gathering data. They're worried, Martinez explained. The mining evacuation proved humans have an unintended influence over other species during crisis. Some see it as a threat to their autonomy, while others want to use us as living emergency beacons, Kevin added. Martinez nodded. Exactly. 3 trade consortiums have already requested human safety officers on all their vessels. The Palaxian High Command wants humans integrated into their military units. Vreltox's scales darkened, and the Zoraxian Directorate fears what would happen if humans learned to control this effect. That evening, as Lisa prepared her report for Earth's government, she received an encrypted message. The sender was untraceable, but the content was clear. Genetic samples from 17 species showed artificial markers, evidence of deliberate engineering in their distant evolutionary past. Someone or something had designed most galactic species to respond to humans in emergencies. But why? And who had done it? When Lisa shared this with Vreltox, the Zoraxian seemed unsurprised. The real question, Dr. Green, is not who did this to us, he said softly. The question is, who did this to humans? For if we were engineered to respond to you, who engineered you to trigger that response? Lisa stared at the stars visible through the station viewport, suddenly feeling like the universe had become much larger and much stranger than she had ever imagined. Alarms blared throughout the research station. Red emergency lights flashed in every corridor. Frank Morris ran from his quarters, pulling on his uniform jacket. As head of station security, he needed to reach the command center fast. Status report, he shouted into his communicator. Drevix pirates, came the reply. 3 ships. They've disabled our outer defenses. Frank cursed under his breath. The Drevix were notorious raiders, insectoid creatures with advanced weapons and no mercy. The research station had valuable equipment and data, making it a tempting target. Amy Daniels, one of the xenobiologists, emerged from a side corridor. What's happening? Pirates. Get to the safe room with the others. Amy shook her head. The aliens in Lab Section C are panicking. I need to help them. Before Frank could argue, a tremendous boom shook the station. The lights flickered, and the artificial gravity wavered. Frank steadied himself against a wall. That was a boarding charge, he said. They're inside. Throughout the station, the security cameras captured a familiar but still surprising sight. As the attack began, alien researchers and staff members reacted in now predictable ways. The Palaxians rushed toward human researchers. The Zoraxians backed away, but formed defensive positions. The Voth, usually slow-moving, showed remarkable speed as they clustered around the humans. In the station's school area, something even more remarkable happened. 8-year-old Sam Bennett was visiting his mother, Dr. Ellen Bennett. As the alarm sounded, the child froze in fear. Within moments, 6 different alien species formed a protective circle around him, including species that normally avoided adult humans. The station's eye recorded everything. Dr. Lisa Green watched the security feeds from a reinforced observation room, continuing her research even during the attack. Look at that, she told Vreltox, pointing to a screen showing the cafeteria. The Micteri are using their bodies to shield Peter from laser fire. Vreltox observed with scientific detachment. Note how they position themselves. They're not just clustering randomly. They're creating optimal defensive formations. The pirates moved through the station with practiced efficiency, but something slowed their advance. The Drevix, themselves an insectoid species from the outer rim, showed unusual hesitation when approaching areas with humans present. They sense it too, Lisa realized. Even though they're attacking us, they feel the same instinctual response. The pirate captain, a larger Drevix with scarred mandibles, ordered his troops to use stun weapons on humans first. The security footage caught his chittering command: disable the apex species before securing other targets. Frank and 5 other security officers managed to reach the armory. They distributed weapons to willing defenders and organized a counterattack. Frank noticed how alien volunteers positioned themselves around him, waiting for direction. They're looking to you for leadership, Amy said, having joined the defense team. Use it. Frank nodded. Team 1. Circle left through maintenance tunnels. Team 2. Right flank through hydroponics. Team 3. Hold this position. The defenders moved with surprising coordination. Species that normally competed or distrusted each other now worked in perfect harmony. Frank realized they weren't following his tactical plan. They were following him, a human, during a crisis. In the school area, young Sam Bennett stopped crying and began giving simple instructions to his alien protectors. Despite being just a child, his human voice triggered immediate compliance from the aliens surrounding him. "Close the door," Sam said, and 3 Palaxians rushed to secure it. "Hide under tables," he continued, and everyone quickly took cover. When a pirate breached the school area, he found himself facing the unified defense force arrayed around a human child. The Dravix raider hesitated, his insectoid eyes revealing confusion and instinctual deference. That moment of hesitation gave station security time to arrive and capture him. After 2 hours of fighting, the pirates retreated, taking fewer prizes than expected. The station's defenders suffered minimal casualties, thanks to the unusual coordination between species. As cleanup began, Dr. Lisa Green reviewed all footage with intense interest. The attack had provided something no controlled experiment could: data on how the human-alien dynamic functioned during genuine life-threatening situations. "The child," Vreltok said, reviewing Sam's footage again. "The protective response was strongest around him." Lisa nodded slowly. "Because he represents the future. The instinct isn't just about immediate survival, it's about ensuring humans continue to exist." The question remained, why did the galaxy seem designed to preserve humanity? And what ancient purpose were humans meant to serve? News of the pirate attack spread quickly through Concordat space. The research station's security footage leaked to major news networks, showing aliens of different species instinctively protecting humans. The recordings of young Sam Bennett surrounded by a defensive ring of aliens became the most viewed video in galactic history. Admiral Olivia Martinez sat in the Earth Embassy on the Concordat Central Station. Representatives from 27 species filled the large meeting hall. "The implications cannot be ignored," said the Palaxian delegate, his antennae twitching excitedly. "Humans provide a natural rallying point during emergencies. We propose integrating human officers into all Concordat peacekeeping forces." The Zoraxian ambassador hissed softly. "We must proceed with caution. This influence could be exploited. What if humans learn to trigger the response artificially?" Admiral Martinez listened patiently. Earth had gone from a newly discovered world to the center of galactic politics in less than a year. Human diplomatic standing had risen dramatically since the mining incident and pirate attack. "Earth has no interest in exploiting this phenomenon," she assured the gathering. "We're still trying to understand it ourselves." Dr. Lisa Green presented her latest findings on a large holographic display. The response appears to be embedded at the genetic level in most Concordat species. It's tied to specific human biochemical signatures that are released during stress situations. Gentar, a respected Concordat sociologist, stepped forward. His species resembled tall, slender humanoids with iridescent skin. "I have studied ancient texts from 17 worlds. Many contain legends of guardian beings or feared hunters from the stars. The descriptions are remarkably similar across cultures separated by vast distances and time." The hall grew quiet as Gentar continued. "My theory is that humans once served as either protectors or enforcers throughout the ancient galaxy. Their influence became embedded in most species' genetic memory." "That's impossible," said a human scientist. "Humans evolved on Earth. We have fossil records going back millions of years." Gentar nodded respectfully. Perhaps the humans who influenced the galaxy returned to Earth, or perhaps Earth was preserved as a cradle world, to ensure humans would eventually re-emerge into the galactic community. These discussions continued for weeks. Some species proposed using humans as living emergency beacons on dangerous expeditions. Others wanted human DNA studied to replicate the effect artificially. Several religious groups began worshipping humans as the returned guardians. In her private office, Admiral Martinez met with Captain Greg Russell from Earth Intelligence. "The situation is becoming complicated," Martinez said. "Half the galaxy wants to put humans on pedestals, and the other half fears us." Russell nodded. "And we still don't know why this is happening. If someone engineered this response into alien species, they had a reason. Could we have forgotten our own history?" Martinez wondered. Ancient humans achieving spaceflight, influencing the galaxy, then returning to Earth. Or someone else designed both us and them, Russell suggested. Made us to trigger their responses, made them to respond to us. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message. A previously unknown species had entered Concordat space. The crystalline HFY had sent massive ships to establish contact. Initial reports indicated something unusual. The HFY showed no instinctual response to humans whatsoever. "This could support Gentar's theory," Martinez said, reading the report. "If the HFY evolved in isolation from the rest of the galactic community, they wouldn't have been influenced by ancient humans." The Concordat Council quickly arranged a diplomatic meeting with the HFY. 5 human representatives were included, both to test the response theory, and because humans had become essential to Concordat diplomacy. As preparations for first contact with the HFY continued, Dr. Lisa Green made a disturbing discovery. Genetic samples from humans and 20 other species showed signs of deliberate manipulation approximately 50,000 years ago. The changes to human DNA were subtle but significant, alterations to the glands that produced the key biochemicals that triggered alien responses. Someone had engineered humans to influence other species during emergencies. The question remained, who had done this, and what crisis had they been preparing for? The answer would come sooner than anyone expected, with the arrival of the mysterious HFY. The HFY ships were beautiful and terrifying. Massive crystalline structures that seemed to grow rather than be built. They sparkled in the light of distant stars. The diplomatic vessel from Earth approached cautiously, carrying representatives from 12 Concordat species along with 6 humans. Commander Eric Tanner stood at the view screen, watching the approaching meeting point. As head of security for this mission, he felt uneasy. Unlike other species, the HFY had shown no reaction to human presence during preliminary communications. "Final approach to neutral meeting zone," announced the pilot. Dr. Lisa Green joined Eric at the view screen. "Remember, the HFY evolved in complete isolation. If our theory about ancient human influence is correct, they wouldn't share the instinctual responses we've seen in other species." The meeting began peacefully enough. The HFY representatives were tall crystalline beings that communicated through light patterns and translated vibrations. They expressed interest in joining the Galactic Concordat and establishing trade routes through their territory. But something felt wrong to Eric. The HFY asked detailed questions about human biology and population numbers. They requested maps showing human settlement patterns across Concordat space. When Lisa presented her research on cross-species response to humans, the HFY representatives vibrated in patterns that their translators refused to interpret. 3 days into negotiations, disaster struck. Without warning, HFY ships attacked 3 outer Concordat colonies simultaneously. The diplomatic vessel received desperate distress calls. They were planning this all along, Eric realized. The negotiations were just to gather intelligence. As the Concordat diplomats panicked, Eric observed something important. Though the HFY showed no instinctual response to humans, they deployed their forces in unusual patterns. Their attack ships avoided direct confrontation with human military units despite tactical advantages. "They know about the effect," Eric told Lisa as they rushed to the bridge. "They don't feel it themselves, but they studied it. They're compensating tactically." The diplomatic vessel barely escaped the meeting zone as HFY ships closed in. As they fled back to Concordat space, reports flooded in from the attacked colonies. The pattern was clear. The hive mind targeted areas with few human residents first. Back at Concordat Central Command, Admiral Martinez organized the defense. The Axalath have launched a coordinated attack across 3 sectors. They're avoiding engagement with human ships and colonies. Dr. Green analyzed the attack pattern data. They're isolating population centers with high human presence. It's a containment strategy. Intar, the Concordat sociologist, had been studying ancient artifacts since the discovery of human influence. He now brought forward his findings with new urgency. I've translated texts from the pre-Concordat era, he explained, displaying images of ancient stone tablets. They speak of a great war 50,000 years ago against crystal mines that devour worlds. The texts say the guardian species defeated them, but knew they would return. Guardian species? Admiral Martinez asked. The description matches humans, Gentar continued. According to these records, the Guardians altered many species to respond to their presence during crisis, creating a unified defense network that could be quickly mobilized. Eric studied the battle maps. The Axalath are being careful around human ships. They fear us for some reason. Lisa's eyes widened with sudden understanding. It's not just the social response effect. There must be something else about human biology that threatens them. In the following days, as the Concordat forces struggled against the Axalath invasion, scientists made a breakthrough. Human sweat contained enzymes that weakened crystalline structures similar to Axalath biology. In high concentrations, these enzymes could potentially disrupt the hive mind's neural pathways. We were designed as weapons against them, Lisa realized. And other species were designed to protect us, so we could fight the Axalath. Commander Eric Tanner led a special response team to the front lines. They discovered that Axalath drones became disoriented when in close proximity to humans for extended periods. The effect wasn't immediate, but it was devastating to the hive mind's coordination. Whatever ancient humans did to defeat them before, Eric told Admiral Martinez, I think we're about to remember. The Galactic Concordat prepared for the largest coordinated action in its history, with humans at the center of their battle strategy. The ancient purpose of humanity was becoming clear. They were the galaxy's immune system against a crystalline infection that had returned after 50,000 years. 1 year after first contact, the Galactic Concordat gathered on Earth. Representatives from 42 species filled the Grand Hall of the newly built Concordat Embassy in Geneva. The mood was solemn yet hopeful. The war with the Axalath hivemind had ended 3 months earlier. Field Marshal Paul Howard stood at the podium, his uniform decorated with medals from 7 different species. Once a skeptic about alien-human interactions, he had witnessed their effectiveness firsthand during the conflict. Today we formalize what we now call the Human Protocol, he announced, a set of emergency procedures built around the special relationship between humans and other galactic species. The audience listened attentively. The war had proven what the research station experiments had suggested. Humans served as natural rallying points during crisis, and their biochemistry disrupted Axalath neural networks. In times of peace, we are equals, Paul continued. But in emergencies, we acknowledge the unique role humans play in coordinating multi-species responses. Dr. Lisa Green presented the scientific basis for the protocol. Studies confirm that human stress pheromones trigger either approach or avoidance behaviors in most species. We've documented this effect across 39 distinct biologies. The protocol was elegant in its simplicity. During emergencies, non-human species would either approach or avoid humans based on their specific instinctual response. Those who approached would form organized teams around human coordinators. Those who avoided would maintain distance while establishing secondary response groups. This isn't about human superiority, Lisa emphasized. It's about utilizing natural biological responses to save lives. Some species had initially resisted the idea. The Zoraxian Directorate worried about human influence growing too strong. But a space station decompression incident 6 months earlier had changed many minds. On that day, Field Marshal Howard had been visiting Concordat Station 6 when a meteor struck the outer hull. As alarms blared and oxygen levels dropped, he watched in amazement as thousands of beings from dozens of species sorted themselves into efficient emergency teams, simply by following their instincts regarding the humans present. The station's AI had recorded everything. Survival rates in sections with human presence reached 97%. In areas without humans, the rate dropped to 64%. I could not deny what I witnessed, Paul told the assembly. Without a single command being given, perfect order emerged from chaos. After the formal adoption ceremony, young alien children were taught the protocol in schools throughout Concordat space. Simple lessons explained how to identify and respond to emergency situations. In an emergency, always run to or away from the closest human. This is not superstition, it's evolutionary wisdom. Dr. Lisa Green stood on her balcony that evening, watching the sunset over Lake Geneva. Admiral Martinez joined her, carrying 2 glasses of champagne. "To the protocol," Martinez said, offering a toast. Lisa smiled but looked thoughtful. "We still don't know who engineered this response, who designed humans to trigger it, and other species to follow it." "Does it matter?" Martinez asked. "It works. It saved billions of lives in the war." "It matters because they knew the Axlath would return," Lisa replied. "Someone 50,000 years ago foresaw this threat and prepared an entire galaxy to face it. Who had that kind of foresight? That kind of power?" Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chime. A message from the archaeological team on Mars appeared on Lisa's tablet. They had discovered something beneath the surface, a chamber predating all known human civilization. Inside were crystalline records showing Earth humans terraforming worlds throughout the galaxy, hundreds of thousands of years ago. "We didn't come from Earth," Lisa whispered, reading the report. "We returned to it. We hid here, preserving ourselves until the galaxy would need us again." As night fell across Geneva, billions of beings throughout Concordat space slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that should danger strike, they knew exactly what to do. Their bodies remembered, even if their conscious minds didn't understand why. Run to a human, or away from one. Either way, follow the ancient programming that had saved the galaxy once before, and now had saved it again. The human protocol wasn't just a set of emergency procedures. It was the echo of an ancient guardian species fulfilling its purpose once more, standing between life and extinction when crisis came. And somewhere out among the stars, the descendants of those who had engineered this response watched with satisfaction as their grand design, 50 millennia in the making, functioned exactly as intended.